Hello, dear friends. Welcome to Spiritism 101 on Kardec Radio. Welcome, listeners. Welcome, everyone who is on Facebook Live and those who listen on demand and not live. Welcome, too. We're broadcasting from California. It is, however, at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time that we meet on Kardec Radio for Spiritism 101 with different subjects every week. And we also have the same time every Monday, 3:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So we're following the book called Spiritism 101 by Louis Hu. And for those of you who are joining today for the first time, we have gone over quite a few subjects, and I just let you know in case you'd like to follow us through the book by Louis Hu or the Allan Kardec books. Here are the subjects. We covered so far the Spiritist principle, the three revelations, the Hydesville phenomena, the turning tables, Allan Kardec, God, Spiritist hierarchies, the perispirit, spiritual influence, dreams, mediumship, mediums, and today we're going to talk about psychography. Thank you so much for joining, Vanessa, and we are now today for the first time also on the Kardec Radio app live. So for those of you who are there, welcome. I'm delighted for you to listen. So today, psychography. Psychography is the type of mediumship that allows spirits to communicate in writing. Allan Kardec says that all efforts should be directed towards the mediumship of psychography because it allows us to establish constant and regular contact with the spirits. The faculty of writing is also the easiest mediumship to develop by exercise. So this is a good thing for us to know, that for those of us who are interested in expanding or opening up our mediumship, psychography might be the first step. It means that we allow the good spirits right through us. At the time of Allan Kardec, several objects were used to obtain communication with the spirits. At first, some boards, and then some baskets with a pen inserted in the center of them. And they were used to receive the psychography. So back in the old days, starting with Allan Kardec, it wasn't only just the medium and his pen, his or her pen. They, as we learned a few weeks ago, used some little tables with pens attached, plates with pens attached, and allowed those to write. But today, mostly psychography manifests by mediums just picking up a pen and allowing the spirits to work through them. What is the advantage of automatic writing? By means of psychography, we can more easily identify the spirit's level of evolvement, recognizing whether they are good or bad, wise or ignorant spirits. Through books and psychographic works, we get to know better their way of thinking and the moral teachings they contain. And we also learn about their personalities. Precise revelations of the spiritual world are also narrated in psychography. Let us go now to the Medium's book, page 238. Of course, Allan Kardec covered psychography quite a bit in detail. And it would be advisable to use the Medium's book to read up on more details. We will not be covering all little items on psychography today. However, I will take some pointers to help us understand the phenomena a little bit better. So what is Allan Kardec saying? It is in chapter 15. The chapter is titled Writing or Psychographic Mediums, and we are going to look on page 235, item 178. Of all the forms of communication, manual writing is the simplest, the most convenient, and especially the most complete. All effort should be made to develop it, for it enables relationships to be established with spirits that are lasting and regular as those we maintain amongst ourselves. We stress its use so highly because it is the method through which spirits best reveal their nature and the degree of their elevation or lowliness. Through the ease with which they can express themselves in this way, they provide us with knowledge of their innermost thoughts, enabling us to evaluate them and determine their true worth. Moreover, for the medium, this faculty is the most susceptible of being developed with practice. I apologize, but my dog seems to be gnawing on something. In just a moment, I need to look and see what it is. Okay. Stop. So hopefully he will stop. I really apologize, but this is life. Sometimes it's children, sometimes it's pets. So what we're learning here is psychography is the most common form. It's the easiest form of establishing communication with the spirits. And by doing so, we form lasting relationships to those spirits who like to communicate through us. And we can also very easily judge their level of moral elevation. And all of this is very helpful because we certainly don't want to fall prey to communications from lower level spirits and getting misguided. So we do know two very famous Brazilian mediums. One is, you may guess, it is Chico Xavier. The Brazilian medium Francisco Cândido Xavier, who was born in 1910 and passed away or transitioned in 2002, psychographed more than 400 books. He's considered the greatest medium of psychography of all times. So here, let us make a mental note that Chico Xavier was a medium of psychography, for those of us who didn't know that, and that he wrote approximately 400 books. Emmanuel was one of his most common spirit who dictated books through him. And we enjoy these books to this day. We learn so much from all the works that Chico Xavier psychographed. So let us send for a moment, just open our hearts and minds and let us thank him a warm thank you for all the work he has done. The other medium that is quite well known, and most of us might have even met him, is Divaldo Pereira Franco. He was born in 1927, and as we know, he is still among us. He's now in his 90s, or about 90 years old, maybe 91, if I do the math correctly. And he still travels the world, and he wrote a lot of books. He psychographed a lot of books. Divaldo Franco is a medium of psychography and psychophony. Now, psychophony, those are mediums that give the spirits a voice. It is not about writing, it's about speaking mediums. He has published more than 280 books through psychography on Spiritism under the guidance of spirits, including a series of psychological studies dictated by his spiritual mentor, Joanna de Angelis. Come on, stop now. Sorry. My dog has never done this, but at this moment he has it in his mind. He needs to shred my carpet. So let us go back to psychography. How many types of writing mediums are there? The mediums are divided into 4 categories, actually maybe 3.5. The first one is a mechanical or unconscious medium. What characterizes the phenomena in this instance is that the mediums are completely unaware of what they are writing. So mechanical or unconscious mediums are not conscious while they're writing. Let us go to the medium's book on page 236, item 179. Again, we're not reading the whole item, so I invite you to look it up for yourselves. But here is what I would like to share. A spirit can express its thought directly, whether by moving an object for which the medium's hand only acts as support, or by acting directly upon the hand. The role of mechanical mediums is that of a machine, Allan Kardec says. When a spirit acts directly upon the medium's hand, it impels it completely independently of the medium's will. The hand writes without stopping and despite the medium's will for as long as the spirit has something to say, and will then stop when it was finished. What characterizes the phenomena in this instant is that the medium is completely unaware of what he or she is writing. This absolute unawareness characterizes those whom we call passive or mechanical mediums. This faculty is all the more valuable since it does not leave the slightest doubt about the independent thought of the entity doing the writing. So unconscious mechanical mediums are unconscious. The hand moves constantly. It is easy to know that the messages are indeed from spirits and not from the medium. So this is one, and mechanical mediums are considered a machine, as Allan Kardec puts it. So let us see what is in contrast to the mechanical mediums. Here we have the intuitive or conscious mediums. A spirit transmits its thought through the medium's soul. The spirit does not act directly upon the hand in order to make it right, but acts upon the soul with which it identifies itself. So here the spirit acts upon the soul, whereas in the mechanical and unconscious mediums, it acts directly upon the hand. So this is one big distinction. Now let us go back to the spirit's book, to the medium's book, page 238, same chapter, namely chapter 15, item 181. Semi-mechanical mediums. In the case of purely mechanical mediums, the movement of the hand is independent of their will. While with intuitive mediums, wait a minute, we said, we said intuitive mediums. All right, I apologize. Let us go to page 237, intuitive mediums. So what we said, that they are acting, the spirits are acting directly upon the soul and not the hand. Intuitive mediums. Item 180 on page 237 in the medium's book. The transmission of a spirit's thought may also occur by means of the medium's own spirit, or rather his or her own soul, since we use that term for the spirit while incarnated. In this case, the communicating spirit does not act directly upon the hand in order to make it right, like in the mechanical medium's case, for it neither holds it nor guides it, but acts upon the soul with which it identifies itself. Then, under this impulsion, the medium's soul guides the hand, which in turn guides the pencil. So there needs to be a certain affinity between the spirit and the medium. The spirit acts upon the soul, and the medium actually then moves the hand. Here we must note an important fact. The communicating spirit does not replace the medium's soul, because it could not dislodge it from the body. So the spirit still has its soul. The incarnate still has its soul. The spirit does not replace it. Rather, it dominates it apart from the medium's will and impresses its own will on it. So the medium keeps its soul, his or her soul, The spirit with affinity acts upon the soul, and that is what makes the medium's hand right. Consequently, the soul's role is not completely passive. It receives the spirit's thought and transmits it. In this situation, the medium is conscious of what is being written, although it is not a reflection of his or her own thought. This type of person is called an intuitive medium. So the medium is conscious. The connection happens from the spirit to the soul of the medium, which then allows the hand of the medium to move. The soul does not get replaced. It just has an impact on the soul, and the medium is conscious. Now, remember earlier we said that the role of mechanical mediums is that of a machine, the mechanical - unconscious mediums. Whereas in the intuitive medium, he acts as an interpreter. So it is not a purely mechanical act. In order to transmit thoughts, the intuitive medium must comprehend them. So it's not just mechanically written, but the medium actually comprehends those thoughts that are getting transmitted. And in a sense, assimilates them in order to faithfully translates the thoughts of the spirit. Intuitive mediums are common, but are also very prone to error, because they often cannot discern what comes from them or the spirit. Remember earlier we said that mechanical mediums, it's pretty sure that the information does not come from the incarnate, from the medium. But here with the intuitive and conscious medium, it's sometimes questionable. It's harder to discern. Doesn't mean that it comes from the medium. So there's a clear distinction here, and I hope we understood that. Now there is a third category, and they're called the semi-mechanical or semi-conscious mediums. Semi-mechanical mediums feel the hand being moved without their willing it to do so, but at the same time they are aware while the words are being formed of what is being written. Page 238, item 181 in the Medium's book, we find the following on semi-mechanical mediums. So far we had the mechanical, we had the intuitive, and now we have the semi-mechanical. In the case of purely mechanical mediums, the movement of the hand is independent of their will, while with intuitive mediums, which we just had, the movement is voluntary and facultative. Semi-mechanical mediums, on the other hand, are a blend of both, namely mechanical and intuitive mediums. That is, they feel the hand being moved without their willing to do so, but at the same time they are aware of what is being written while the words are being formed. While the first, the medium's thought appears after the writing. The first is the mechanical. With the second, before the writing, the intuitive before the writing. With the third, namely the semi-mechanical mediums, the writing is in process. Semi-mechanical mediums are the most numerous. So there is a distinction and there is a relation. Now the fourth category that I want to look at is the inspired mediums. We go for this to the Medium's book, page 258, and this time item 182. The chapter is called Inspired Mediums. Now let's see what that is all about. Item 182 on page 238 in the Medium's book. All those who either in a normal or an ecstatic state receive mental communications that are foreign to their own preconceived ideas may be considered to be inspired mediums. So this is important. So I say this again. All those who either in a normal or an ecstatic state receive mental communications that are foreign to their own preconceived ideas may be considered to be inspired mediums. So some of us, or maybe many of us, have had those moments where we get ideas and we wonder, where did they come from? So we might be an inspired medium. They may be regarded as an intuitive variety. The difference between the thought itself and the medium's own thought. If we go now, we skip over the rest of this item and item 183, and again I recommend to look at it if you like to know a little bit more about it. But if we skip over to page 240 and we go to 3 questions that Allan Kardec asked in reference to inspired mediums, we might be able to understand it a little bit more in detail. What is the primary cause of inspiration, Allan Kardec asks. And the spirits answer, mental communication from a spirit. So the inspiration is mental communication coming from the spirit. Is inspiration only meant for great revelations? And the answer is no. It is almost always meant for the most common life circumstances. So it is not always for an inspiration or a revelation. For a revelation. But these communications happen according to the spirits for the most common life circumstances. For example, you want to go somewhere and a secret voice tells you not to because you would meet with danger, or this voice suggests that you do something that you had not thought of. This is called an inspiration. There are very few people who have not been inspired on many occasions. I'm sure we can attest to that. Third question. In moments of inspiration, can writers, painters, or musicians, for example, be regarded as mediums? So Allan Kardec is now wondering, what about writers, painters, and musicians? Can they be considered inspired mediums? And the answer is yes, because in such moments their soul is freer and more separate from matter, and thus it recovers part of its faculties as a spirit and more easily receives communications from other spirits who inspire it. So yes, often or on an occasion, artists are inspired by spirits. So now we have another category that Allan Kardec dedicated a short little chapter on. It's called the prescient mediums. It is a variety of inspired mediums that we find on page 240 in the Medium's book, item 184. A presentiment is a vague intuition about future events. So a prescient medium is one that receives messages on future events. Certain individuals possess this faculty to different degrees of development. It may be regarded as a type of second sight that enables them to see the consequences of the present and the natural chain of events. But they are also often the result of concealed communications, and it is particularly in these instances that the individuals so gifted may be called prescient mediums, who comprise a variety of inspired mediums. So now we learn that the prescient mediums who have the capacity to foresee some future events are a variety of inspired mediums. And inspired mediums are those who get ideas from the spirits. All of this falls, by the way, under psychography. All of this is part of chapter 15 in the Medium's book called Writing or Psychographic Mediums. The next one that we find in Louis Hu's book is a specular psychography. What is that now? Let us see. It's called specular psychography. Specular psychography is a variant of psychography. The messages received by the medium can only be read with the help of a mirror. There it is. So the medium writes actually in a mirror image. So in order to decipher the message, to be able to read it, a mirror has to be held up. And then you can read it actually in the mirror. So that is a specular psychography. I have personally not come across anyone who's writing that way, but I'm sure it exists. So when we go back to the medium's book, in order to wrap up our gathering today on psychography, we find the specialties, the different psychographic specialties on page 252. Because obviously we are aware of the fact that there are many different types of messages we can get, which can fall into many different categories. So the first one that we find in Allan Kardec on page 2 in Allan Kardec's Medium's book on page 252, chapter, let's see, I think we're back. Hello friends, sorry about that. So on page 252, chapter 16, under special mediums in the Medium's book, we can find the different types of psychographic mediums. There is, for example, the verse-making mediums, those who most easily receive communications in verse. Then we have the poetic mediums, those who receive communications as poems. The positive mediums, generally their communication displays a clean and precise character which spontaneously lends itself to circumstantial details and exact teachings. And this is a very rare form. Then we have the literary mediums, those who do not display the vague tone of poetic mediums or the down-to-earth tone of positive mediums, but who write with sagacity. Their style is correct, elegant, and frequently of notable eloquence. Those are the literary mediums. Then we have the incorrect mediums. Those who obtain very good communications and thoughts, displaying irreproachable morality, but whose style is diffuse, incorrect, and full of repetitions and improper terms. Remember at the beginning today we said that psychography is one of the mediumships that we can very easily judge what moral development the spirit is at that communicates the information. So here it would be clear a medium that is erratic and the messages are not very well written is a lower type medium spirit. Then the next one is the historian mediums, those who have a special aptitude for historical dissertations. Then we have the scientific mediums. We do not say scientists because these may be very uneducated. Despite this, however, they're especially able to receive communications related to the sciences. Then we have the medical mediums, and their specialty is that of the most easily serving spirits for medical prescriptions. Then we have the religious mediums, those who more especially receive communications of a religious character. We have the philosophical and moralist mediums, and that comprises the list that Allan Kardec gave us. So it just gives us an idea that of different categories, of the different types of messages that come across from the spirits. So in summary, psychography is one of the most common forms of mediumship. It is one of the easiest to establish a constant, clear contact with the spirits. We know that Chico Xavier and Divaldo Franco are two very famous Brazilian mediums of psychography, and in Divaldo Franco's case also psychophony. We also learned about the mechanical or unconscious mediums. We learned about the semi-mechanical or semi-conscious mediums, and we understood better the intuitive or conscious mediums. And we also learned about the inspired mediums and the prescient mediums. Remember, prescient, they are able to foretell some future events. And lastly, we touched on the specular psychography, which can only be deciphered through a mirror. I wish you a beautiful evening if you're on the East Coast, and late afternoon on the West Coast. Thank you for everyone listening. It is with gratitude in my heart to Kardec Radio that we are able to get together and exchange spiritist ideas in so many forms and varieties. I am at awe at modern technology and the fact that we have Kardec Radio and Facebook Live. Next week, we will be talking a little bit more about Chico Xavier as the single most famous medium of psychography. I wish you many blessings, and with gratitude to the good spirits and everyone else, goodbye.